With that, we're pretty much ready to wrap up. I'm going to open this up for any questions, either to myself, any of the local nerds. Any of you guys have anything to add, by the way? Typically, I like to just give real-world examples. I gave you one with some of my clients. I'll share a little bit. Well, again, pick on Blue Water. That's not really picking. I'm pretty proud of what we've done over Blue Water Transit. I've been their IT guy for, age myself, 16 years at least. I think probably more than that. Yeah. So when I started, you know, and they know this, I knew nothing. Okay. I don't know that much more today, but I got a lot of guys that know a lot of stuff. So, but literally we started, I used to go in and clean their computers. Okay. I convinced Dave that if you keep them clean, they get full of dust, you know, they'll last longer if we keep them clean. Started the whole idea of preventive maintenance. That's really where I started my business. And Dave used to build all his own computers. He used to do all the computer work. And eventually he went, can you just help me with some of this stuff? I'm too busy. I can't do it. So I started helping them with their IT stuff. And I learned a lot there. I mean, we grew together to the point where what's it been 5 years now since you built the new building? 4? 6. Time flies. So 6 years ago, they built a brand new facility, changed everything in my world as far as supporting them. I mean, they grew like instantaneously huge and made me real nervous because we went from, we had one server at the time. I was keeping track of just their documents and that kind of stuff, to all of a sudden now we have, I think, 6 servers that we're maintaining, all different types, Windows, Linux, stuff I don't even know about. And I'm like, how am I going to keep up with all this stuff? So somewhere in that point is where I learned about Nerds on Site, was from one of my former employees that I would train, and local businesses would hire them away from me. And he found out about Nerds on Site. That was the answer for me. I can't keep up with this stuff myself. I mean, honestly, you know, each one of us has our own area of expertise, but together we can cover all this stuff. So we've grown with them. We've got quite an operation. We have everything virtualized at Blue Water Transit now, all their servers. So the replication that Dennis was talking about literally goes on all the time. Anything that's on the main servers being copied to another server, they replicate back and forth to each other. And then we back all that up multiple different ways. So 3 months ago, I forget how long ago, it was time to replace their servers. We have them on a 3-year cycle. So when the warranty's up, we bring in new equipment, and we what do I want to say, hand me down, we bump those down to the backups. This time around, because of the virtualization that we put in, we're able to completely put in all new servers while they're running off the old stuff, and they experience no downtime whatsoever. So they didn't even know it. It was going on over the weekends. We had all new hardware, everything restored, back up running, and they never had to quit working. So that's what's available today, that kind of technology. Whether it makes sense for your business or not, it's all a matter of figuring out what that risk level is and what that cost is. And then you can really make a good business decision. Does it make sense to invest in these types of technologies? So that's what we're all about today, trying to help you figure out what the risk is, what do you need to cover that risk, what's the expense, and does it make sense for my business? That's it. I'm going to open it up to questions. Anybody? This is where everybody gets quiet. Jill? No. Dawn. Dawn, sorry. Okay. Go ahead, Dawn.
I might say I'm really naive, but I've never been a fan of the online backup or, you know, cloud. And
sure.
We have the SkyDrive, which I assume is the same as the cloud.
That's a cloud. Yep.
Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of Go? Because that's where everything is.
Okay.
And you know, do you back it up there, or, you know, what do you do with that? And what are the advantages of it? You said yours is on there.
Oops.
I just don't feel like it's secure. It feels like it's floating in the cloud, and anybody can grab my cloud.
Well, I love real world examples. Nerds on Site was the same way. I mean, our owners of Nerds on, look at Dennis laugh. He's not talking, so you can't see him right now. Nerds on Site was so paranoid of the cloud and so paranoid of Google and everything. I mean, they have one computer at the main office where they do their banking on. It doesn't connect to the internet until they're ready to transmit. They plug it in, they transmit, and they unplug it. That's how paranoid they are about the cloud and everything. And over time, they finally came around to the idea. I mean, David Redekop, our founder, basically told me, it came to the point where we moved everything to the cloud over the last few years. Our entire business runs over there. We run on Amazon, I believe, right? Is that right, Dennis? Mm-hmm. And he basically came to the realization, you got to look at what's available out there in technology. I mean, these guys are all trying to do all this locally on our local servers and keep everything safe and secure. Dennis can tell you how many times a day they try to hack into our servers. So he really had to say, who's out there, who can do this the best? Is it us? Is it Nerds on Site? I mean, we're a tech company. You think, yeah, we got this covered. And he was honest with himself, and he said, yeah, we need to go, who's doing it out there the best right now? And if you look, Amazon, I mean, it could change next week, but those guys have been doing it. They're the biggest, and they know how to do that. So to answer your question, do we trust them? Heck no. I mean, we rely on them, but we trust and verify, and we have redundancy. So Amazon went down, he could tell you, for 3 or 4 days, and we couldn't do anything, and they were supposed to have multiple redundant. So that was one of the questions in there. If you do have stuff in the cloud, are you backing it up? There are options available so that you can back up your stuff that it's in the cloud. So it's very common. You're not alone. And Mr. Frazier is not. He hates the idea of the cloud. I mean, it just makes you nervous because you don't physically have it right here. You can put your hand on, right? And that makes people nervous. So
if I can, Dave, I'll weigh in with a couple answers on that question. Number one, in terms of reliability and redundancy, you can match the reliability and redundancy of the cloud if your office has multiple power connections to different power grids. You have multiple internet connections. You have backup generators, and you have the highest level of physical security. Then your security and your redundancy is as good as a data center. You probably don't have those in your office. So in terms of reliability and redundancy, you probably can't even come close. The data centers typically are audited to a very high standard. It's called SAS 70, and there are 2 types. And if you go to a data center that has a SAS 70 Type 2 certification, that means that their security controls have been verified and have been tested. In spite of all that, in terms of security, I don't trust anybody. And so my advice is, not even David Everett. I don't trust David Everett. So my advice is, if you're going to send data to the cloud that's important, that is sensitive, you encrypt it first, and you find a solution that does not require you to give them the encryption keys. If you encrypt the data with military-grade encryption, which is easily done, and they don't have the keys, it doesn't make any difference who has it and what they do with it, because unless they're willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to subject it to very high levels of computing power, they're not going to be able to break the encryption. Again, that's assuming that you use a good password. So my advice on that is, my model on security is trust no one. My data that I'm concerned about, I make sure I encrypt it on my computer. It doesn't leave my home network until it's encrypted, and no one else has the keys outside of the network. That's what makes the cloud secure. Not trust, but verifying. But it's the old Ronald Reagan, Dovrier no provrier. Trust but verify.
Yeah. Another quick example is back in the early days with healthcare with HIPAA compliance. I know we started to get this all the time where HIPAA said, the data can't leave the office. If it's a doctor's office, it's got to be here. It's got multiple backups and all this kind of stuff. And then didn't take them long to realize that's really kind of a stupid policy, because the building burns and all the data's here, it's gone. So they didn't trust the cloud either, but very quickly they've come around to now, just like Dennis says, it really needs to be offsite, needs to be encrypted, but it really shouldn't be local. So yeah, it's a changing world, and nobody likes change, but big people like Amazon, government, they wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't the best way to go. So.
Well, and again, it's not either or, because you do need to have local copies of your data, because if you have large amounts of data and everything is online, unless you have an extremely fast internet connection, it can take you days or weeks to get that information back. People think, I'll download my data. They don't realize that even a relatively fast internet connection, if you have terabytes of data, it will take you weeks to get that back. If you do the math, you quickly figure out that large amounts of data through even a fast internet connection take a long time to download. So you need to have both. You know, it's off-site for security. It's on-site for fast recovery.
Don, you have another question? Just
Pay for to use the cloud?
oh yeah,
Okay, I thought so.
big time.
It was all set up before I got there. The last place I worked at, I'm like, no, don't do it. So we didn't do it.
Well, and again, there's all levels of that. If anybody's familiar with what's Dropbox or any of these where you're storing your documents up there, that's cloud. It's just you know, Amazon's the big cloud, and those are littler ones. But yeah, there's all different levels of that. And just to let everybody know, it's a few minutes after 1. If you have to leave, you're welcome to leave. If you have more questions, we'll stick around until they're all answered. We're not in a big hurry. So, and if there's more cookies and stuff, feel free to grab them. And so anybody else have any questions? Anything that we can help with?
Where's the
Great.
There's data center?
Good question. Where's our data center, Dave or Dennis?
Most of it is on Amazon. Most of it runs out of a data center in Virginia, Amazon. Parts of it run out of other places, including some offices in London. But the bulk of the servers that we use for internally, and also the ones that we use to provide for client services, all run out of Amazon's data center in Virginia.
So I can just tell you, when I first joined Nerds on Site, our corporate headquarters is in London, Ontario. So I went over there and met everybody, and they showed me at the time our data center, and it was a closet like this. It used to be a women's bathroom, and it was just full of servers. And I just went, on one hand, I'm kind of impressed because, you know, I'm not real good with that kind of stuff, technology stuff, the server end of it. On the other hand, I went, really? Our entire worldwide company's running out of this closet, you know? And if you go back and start thinking about it, you know, how secure is that? I mean, you know, that building's fairly secure, but I mean, a janitor that's in here cleaning that has that key to that closet could literally bring us down. So when you start looking at, you know, a true data center, believe me, they have a lot more security in place. You're not just going to walk in there. You know, you're going to be, you know, everything from retinal scans or whatever, you know, background checks and stuff before you ever get into that building. So it really is much more secure. It's hard to trust. It is.
Yeah, I can't get into the data center at Amazon. I probably never will be able to. It's harder to get into than Fort Knox. But we had our data center in the Primus data center in London. We had it at Q9 in Toronto. I was able to get into those buildings, but it required a retinal scan, a card, a password, and basically when you walk in, you step on a scale, so that when you walk back out, you can't take equipment with you that's hidden underneath your coat or whatever. And the entire time, every inch of it, except presumably the bathrooms, is covered by cameras. And there are very large guys with guns walking around. So it is a level of security that you probably couldn't match at your office, even if you had enough money to do it.
And he still had to get across the border and get back to the U.S. So, we won't ask him about that experience. But you had another question, Don?
I'm sorry. What prevents somebody from getting in the cloud and going to your cloud? You know, hacking. That's what I envision is that, you know, hackers.
Well, they have to have a really big, expensive airplane to get there, first of all. I don't know. What prevents people from getting to the cloud data? I mean, as far as hackers, massive.
Well, that's a really good question. There are, we talk about airplanes. Actually, some of the data centers I've been to have large concrete barriers around the outside. You couldn't drive a tank into the side of those. The walls are like 12 feet thick. As far as hackers getting in, that goes back to what I said earlier. If you've encrypted the data and they don't have the keys at the data center, it doesn't matter. The hackers can walk in and walk out with any file of mine, and it doesn't bother me a bit because I know that it's going to take them, you know, with the current technology that costs less than $1 million, it will take them several thousand years to crack that encryption. That's why I believe in the trust no one model. I think it is a legitimate concern. You know, what if you have a rogue employee at a data center? What if somebody hacks into it? I think there is only one good answer, and that is you encrypt the data before you send it. I don't send any sensitive data to the cloud that's not encrypted. In some data centers, they have your keys. They have ways that if the right people got together, they could decrypt the data. But there are also backup schemes, and in fact, Nerds on Site has some backup schemes that we use where the data is encrypted on the computer and the data center never has the keys. So they have no way to decrypt the data. It's strictly noise to them, no matter how they look at it.
And we have our own online backup that we use for like PCs, just anybody's laptop, and that's the scenario there. It's encrypted before it ever leaves your computer and sent to our data center. They can get the files, but they have no way to see what it is. It's all encrypted. So again, trying to meet all the different compliance requirements there. So that brings me, that's a good point. I mean, you know, something as simple, like for me, I'm a one-man operation, you know, like I say, everything's here. I still back up my stuff here online to our Nerds backup program. Even though I know Dennis is doing it and he's doing a good job, I want to make sure I've got my, you know, I'm just like you. I want the copy I can get my hands on. But again, it's not, I back up locally at home, but I back up to our cloud too. So it's in multiple places. Anybody else? Any other questions? And I forget the name, not Jill. No, next to you that came in. Michelle. Anything? Okay. You're all dismissed. You're free to go. But, oh, wait. Before you go, again, want to just let you know our next Lunch and Learn. I'll pass these out for anybody. That's going to be January 17th. Here again, unless we have more people, we'll be moving next door.
Thank you very much.
This will be up on the Chamber's website as well.